Welcome to Echo, a platform that will share key trends and innovations in personal protection systems through live events, webinars, and content articles. In Echo, you will meet professional end users from around the world, as well as leaders and experts from the industry. Shortly, you will be introduced to two experts in ballistic helmet technology and a former Norwegian Special Forces operator. Together, they will share insights into HJELM, a technologically advanced helmet system spanning years of research and development. The host of the HJELM webinar is Adam Reed, a former Australian covert police operator with experience in combat photography in Iraq.
Welcome to Echo, brought to you by NFM. Today is the first webinar in our Echo series, and we will be focusing on HJELM. HJELM in Norwegian means helmet in English, and if you were to write it to actually pronounce it correctly, you would write it with a Y-E-L-M, HJELM, of course spelled differently in Norwegian. There's a little tip for you. I didn't know that when I first moved to Norway, so you won't be as embarrassed as I was when I first mentioned the word. There's been a lot of interest in HJELM. We've received a lot of information from people saying, hey, we don't know enough, we need something new. So we've decided to dedicate the first webinar to HJELM. Of course, we cannot go into intricate details. We don't want to give away any trade secrets. So what we've decided to do is select topics and give information that we feel is relevant and actually quite informative to you, the listener. Our audience is quite varied, so we have people from both inside and outside the industry. And there's varied knowledge about helmet design, so what we've decided to do is use a tone of voice that hopefully you all can understand. Speaking of which, if you can understand my English, the Aussie accent, then you're doing well. And you won't have to watch this again to pick up on something you perhaps missed. Apologies if you do, I'll take the blame. Now, what I'd like to do is introduce you to our participants. We have David, who's joining us from the US. David is an engineer with many years' experience in helmet design. We have Thomas, who is our project managing engineer. And we also have Sergei, who spent 28 years in the Norwegian Special Operations Forces. So what we've decided at NFM is to give you a good broad overview of the HJELM product, both from the design perspective and also the end user perspective. But perhaps there's some people in the audience that don't know too much about Thomas and Sergei or David. So what we could do is a 2-minute introduction to each so you can get to know a little bit more about them. And what we'll do is we'll start with you, David, in the US. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
All right, well, thank you, Adam. Hello, everyone. My name's David Rogers. I'm calling in from Final Forge in Massachusetts of the USA. And I've spent a lot of my life working on personal protection equipment for people in a variety of industries. I started in 1994. I don't know how old I am and how long ago that was, but started working primarily on ski helmets and then got into hockey and football and motorcycle, bicycle, and a lot of these protective equipment included eye protection or hearing protection or respiratory protection, especially when I got into the military equipment and headborne equipment designed for the U.S. Army. So that's my background, and we'll get into HJELM in just a minute, Adam.
Awesome. You, Thomas?
Yeah, my name is Thomas. I was hired to NFM in 2018 to start off this helmet project together with David. So I've been there all through the life cycle so far of the helmet, and I've been through the design process, making drawings, going through the production equipment, and of course then making the helmet itself. So, and now we're over to testing, verification, and of course support functions like this. So I have a background as an engineer and a farmer, I would say.
And a farmer?
Yeah.
It's an interesting combination.
It is. It's a good combination. No, so that's a few words about me.
Yep, Sergei?
Yes, I started up in NFM for approximately 1 year ago, and before that I spent 36 years in the Norwegian Armed Forces, 28 of them in the NAVSOF unit. I went through a selection course in 1992. So after being through selection course, I was a patrol commander and different positions, instructor, project officer, and up to, let's say, squadron commander for the training squadron. And in 2015, Norway changed into a new system when it comes to the armed forces. So they went over to the same system as the rest of the NATO. So I converted from being an officer to a NCO. And so I, let's say, the last years of my career, I spent as a command master chief in MJK, the NAVSOF unit in Norway. So my focus has always been giving the operators the right education and training and so on, try to get hold of the right equipment for them. So I was so lucky I could start up in NFM to keep on with the right equipment. So that's my main focus. So yeah.
Awesome. Just a quick one. MJK, for those tuning in from overseas, is that equivalent to the American SEALs, would you say?
Yeah, that would be because Norway has two special forces units, one Army and one Navy. So MJK would be equivalent to the SBS and the
SBS in the UK?
Yeah, in the UK and the SEALs in the US.
Yep, awesome. And just for our viewers, if you haven't actually been to our offices here, this is our showroom. So this is where we're broadcasting from, and actually where our helmets are made. So I'll go back to you, David, in the US. If you could tell us, please, a bit about your history in helmet design and how you came to work with NFM.
Okay, great. Thanks, Adam. I'm not going to spend too much about the history in my helmet design outside of the military because we don't have enough time to get into that. So I'm going to focus on our military experience. I guess I first met NFM about 12, 15 years ago when I worked at a company called Opspor, and they were interested in getting some of the U.S. equipment, the helmets we were working on in the U.S. for that, over to Norway, and eventually, even at that time, wanted to be getting into manufacturing their own helmets. And so my background in the military actually started long before that, and developing helmets for the Army. They had contacted me around 2002, 2003 to work on some future concepts for technology integration on headborne equipment. And they were interested in getting into putting situational awareness technologies like friend-foe identification, heads-up displays, improved communications equipment, night vision goggles, and doing a better job of it on the head. And the equipment at the time had not really been developed to consider those ideas. So that's where I began, and then soon thereafter I got into developing a new system that ultimately turned into the company and the products sold by Opspor. And now those are very popular and used all over the world, and they're one of the original approaches to a modular helmet system. At the time, I and my team of people, we had a good team of people contributing, started working on this. Nobody was quite sure exactly what was going to be needed in the future for helmet integration. There were a lot of ideas, and if you asked different people, they wanted different things, and the people in the Army all had their own programs that they wanted to hang on the helmet, sort of like a Christmas tree. And so we weren't really sure how to go about doing that except to just create an open architecture that allowed people to attach things to. And so we did all new night vision mount shrouds. We built rails, we put on Velcro, we put on other attachment devices. And the hope was that we had just sort of given an open architecture for people to attach things to the helmet. And that worked out pretty well, I think, based on the number of people that are using the OPSPR products today, that you can see there was some good ideas there. But, you know, over time, I've sort of been watching how it turned out. And while there was a lot of things I'm happy with, there were a few things I didn't like. And it mainly had to do with the idea that we spend a tremendous amount of effort trying to take every gram of weight off of the head. The more weight you carry, the more fatigued you will be, the slower your acquisition times will be for targets, the harder it is to stay sharp and focus on the mission. So every gram of weight has a detrimental effect on the head, unless it's providing some, you know, added benefit like protection or situational awareness or so on.
Hey, David, can I stop you there?
Yeah.
You mentioned weight, which is an important factor. I'll start with you, Sergei, if I can.
Yeah.
As an operator out in the field, how important is weight?
Weight is one of the great SOF commanders, Admiral McRaven. When he went to NPS Naval Postgrad School, he wrote the thesis about the special operation and how it works, and he also made a model. And that model consists of 6 different parts, and one of the parts is speed. And to increase the speed, you have to reduce the weight. So actually for special operation units, weight has always been a critical issue. So weight is one of the things that have always been focused on and will be and continues to be. So yeah, it's important.
Is there anything, Thomas, you'd like to add about weight?
Well,
especially in the helm, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, our very first helmet is what we have focused on here is weight, basically. So it's a very lightweight, mainly fragment protecting helmet. So we've, as David said as well, we've tried to shave off every gram of weight where we can, and also not just by designing the shell in the way we have, but also by the modularity and how we attach things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to continue, David?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks, Adam. So getting back to sort of the history and where we are today, if you were to look at the current military helmets, the ground force helmets that are used that have modular systems like the rails, I think you'll see that those are very useful for attaching equipment. And if you have a need or an operation to put a lot of different devices onto the head, which we just talked about adds a lot of weight, sometimes it's warranted and necessary. And in those configurations, I'm very happy with what we've done historically at OPSCOR. But over time, and you know, the helmets that I designed at OPSCOR, that was back in 2005, you know, and so really not much has changed since then, other than some sort of cosmetic facelifts. And, you know, over the years, I've noticed that they've been very helpful to people that put a lot of equipment onto the head and needed that equipment and justified the additional weight. But there was also a lot of people that didn't put any other equipment onto the head. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. In fact, that's a benefit to them. But many missions and duty positions don't require to have all the equipment that some of the different units require. And so I was constantly seeing photos of soldiers in theater with helmets that had rails and Velcro and night vision mounts on them and nothing attached to them. And that was really sort of disappointing in the sense that, one is they couldn't take them off. And two is if you think about the amount of effort that we go through to take when I was talking about the grams, the ballistic shells are very expensive and difficult, and they use state-of-the-art technology to manufacture. And we will spend tremendous amounts of time and money trying to shave off 1 or 2 grams off the ballistic shell, and to see rails and other equipment or mounting hardware on helmets that has no purpose when it's not holding a device that weighs many grams was sort of contrary to the whole goal of being able to put equipment on in the first place. And so when NFM approached me a few years ago and asked if I'd like to work with them on HJELM, I was sort of thrilled to get a second chance at it from back in 2005 and try to improve upon this concept. And so one of the things that we'll get into, and I'll let Thomas elaborate on more, is the overall philosophy with HJELM is to give people the lightest ballistic shell and protective liner system that we possibly could, and then to give them a way to attach devices anywhere that they needed them, but only when they need them and only where they need them. So we got rid of the rails and a lot of the other mounting hardware that are used on other helmets, and created a system that's actually part of the edge band. If you're to look at the helmet, there's a series of mounting hardware all along the edge as it spans the entire perimeter of the helmet. And all of these mounting points can be used for attaching devices or not. They're currently used to hold on a special mounting system that NFM calls the Hasp, that I'm going to let Thomas talk about in a second. But the fundamental principle is that you only attach things when or where you need it. The other principle to this is that using this mounting locations right along the bottom edge of the helmet in an area where it doesn't provide ballistic protection anyway. And for those of you that aren't familiar with ballistic materials, and especially ultra-high molecular weight polyethylene ballistic materials, which are what these shells are made out of, the very edge of the material does not have the same level of protective ballistic protection as the rest of it. And it's because when you shoot it with a projectile right on the edge can bend or fold over and let the projectile go through. And so most countries have a requirement that you don't test the edge of the armor, or at least the edge of the helmet, within 25 millimeters, which is an inch for those of you in the US that are watching this, from the edge. And that's because that's considered a weakened area and that it will not perform at the same level. And so we chose to use that area for something that could help for other reasons, since it's not providing the same level of ballistic protection. And so having these hardware mounting points, and they're very light, they're just a small M3 screw with a piece of plastic, allows us and anyone to attach things anywhere on the helmet edge. And then we also have the ability to attach things on the inside using the same system. So the whole inside is dedicated to what we're treating as a Generation 4 concept, which is how to put electronic equipment into the helmet, and especially wire and cable routing.
Can I stop you there, David?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
You mentioned Hasp. Thomas, could you elaborate a little on Hasp?
Sure. We wanted to look at an alternative for the stationary Velcro that you normally find on other helmets. So we have this Hasp cover that we've spread out over the entire surface of the shell. So whatever you want to mount, you can mount it at any point, basically. So like this one is just a clean helmet, and as David was saying as well, some don't mount anything on their helmet, so then why should you carry around unused weight? That's been the mantra for this from the beginning. Whereas others, they do need to mount something onto the Hasp, and to do that we want to supply small patches instead with Velcro rather than having a stationary fixed point. So then you have a good mechanical fastening to the helmet. It won't come off.
Obviously, because it's not fast, you can move around where you want it.
Exactly. And of course, this, for instance, is an IFF. So it's a strobe that identifies you as a friend or a foe. And jumping out on an airplane, then, for instance, you don't want to lose that. It's a very critical, important equipment, and you want it to stay on your helmet. So Velcro can get filled with dirt, snow, ice, and then it doesn't really work very well as a mounting point. Whereas here you put it on only when and where you need it, so you'll always have a fresh mounting point. And as I said, it covers the entire shell, so you're not bound to the specific places where it's glued normally. And then it's light as well. Weight is always important. And of course, it has an aesthetic function as well. It looks nice in my mind, at least.
Yeah, and I guess you could attach a patch wherever you wanted to.
You could. We have these tiny little Velcro patches that you can see match with the pattern on the Hasp, and this will fit basically anywhere over the shell.
And easy to put on and remove?
Easy to put on and remove. You just lift the cover slightly and slide it underneath, basically. Let the patterns match, and it's there. There you go.
And what about the durability of the Hasp material?
This is made out of a very good tenacity material. So, in the end, it will be worn out, this one as well, but you can easily change it out. The user can change it out when it's going to be worn out. But we have tested it mechanically, so it's relatively strong, and it will hold more than you would want, or more than you would require on the head anyway. You don't want to pull your head off your neck anyway, so it will hold enough.
Can I ask you, Sergei, from an end user's perspective, how is the Hasp compared to old systems?
I've shown it, soft units are actually flexible units, so the operators like that the equipment is flexible. They could, because they have their own preference, they move their own thing, they don't like to attach more than they need. So I've shown it to a couple of operators, and they like the idea with the Hasp because as Thomas mentions, there's something on the helmet you don't want to lose, to be honest. So
you're referring to the strobe?
Yeah, because that could be critical. But they like the thought of being flexible. You don't have to attach more than you need in the Hasp, and you also have other things that Thomas would probably go more into that we can attach to the Hasp that we are working on. So just to break the signature of the helmet, so that makes it even more flexible. So you can.
Yeah.
It's very customizable.
Yeah.
Definitely. As Sergei was mentioning, you can use this for improved camouflage in the field if you want to put twigs or leaves or branches or grass, anything around there. Otherwise, we're going to come with a product that we'll call troll hair, which is sort of the artificial version of that. So you'll have small pieces of, you can say, twigs with leaves on them that you can put under the Hasp. It will stay in the position you put it in, and then you break this round signature that you don't really want to have out there in the field.
Okay, cool.
Adam, I'd like to add one more thing in that comment, which related to the Hasp, and for the viewers, just to make sure it's clear, the Hasp cover is a mechanical attachment that can hold many kilos of weight on it. It doesn't rely on friction or Velcro loop to attach things. The example that Thomas showed people had a Velcro patch for attaching like a ID patch, and that's made to be convenient for people that already have things that use Velcro. But the attachment for the IFF strobe and any of the other devices that we're intending for the exterior of the shell is not using Velcro, and it's actually using a mechanical it reaches around the Hasp material, and it holds underneath, and it's much stronger than you could ever achieve with Velcro. And it also doesn't have the problems of inconsistency you get with Velcro, in that if it's not put on correctly, or if it's gotten bumped or it's gotten worn out, I'm talking about Velcro, you never really know how secure your device is. Whereas this, it's a mechanical attachment to the shell. But like we said, it can be changed out. It's not glued on like this. For those of you that are watching, this cover is just stretched very tight over the shell. It's not glued on, and so that's why you can pull it up with a little bit of force and put different materials under or attach devices to it. So that being said, Just to continue on sort of with the development concept, the Hasp cover and the mounting system is really important for equipment, and that was really one of the areas where we wanted to save weight over legacy helmets. But another thing that we wanted to try to do is improve the inside for the comfort and the protection. And so historically, helmets have used either a compression based liner system where there were pads that were made out of a soft material that you put inside a helmet, and then your head pressed against it and compressed the pads, and that's the compression of the pad was actually what provided the stability of the helmet. And that's true with almost any helmet these days. Like if you look at most helmets on the market, whether they're military or not, that's how they work. That works okay. In fact, if you use a motorcycle helmet, for example, like motorcycle helmets have very thick, very compressible, soft comfort foam when you put your head in, and it conforms to your head, and it works okay. But the problem with that system is that it can get very hot. There's no good ventilation through it, and it also can absorb moisture. So if you're sweating, it gets wet and it gets damp. And the other thing that's bad is that if you're using any of the padding material for impact protection, you have a contradiction in the requirements of the materials. And so if you can imagine, the softer, more plushy, pliable a piece of foam is, the more comfortable it's going to be. But that's also the exact opposite of what you want it to be to absorb impact energy if you were to have a fall or a crash. So the example I like to use is if you were to jump off the roof of your house, you wouldn't want to land on a pillow, because you can imagine the pillow is just going to instantly compress and not do very much good for absorbing energy. And so while pads can be comfortable or they can be rigid and absorb impact energy, it's hard to make them do both. And so most legacy helmet liners have a system where they have a soft pad that's attached to a hard pad, and you're asking material to do things that it doesn't really want to do. And so there's always a compromise made between how soft it is to make it comfortable and how rigid it is to make it absorb energy. And so we decided to try a different system on HJELM, which actually decouples the impact energy management portion of the liner from the part that's used for comfort and stability. So if you look inside a HJELM helmet, there's a suspension liner that's it wraps your entire skull. Let me pull the chin strap out here so people can see. And that's what interfaces with your head, and this can bend and flex and be supportive in the way that a piece of foam would, but it's not soft foam, it's actually a suspension system. And then the green material that's shown in here is the energy absorbing impact material. And that never touches your head, and it allows us to pick the most energy efficient absorbent impact material and combine it with the most comfortable, secure suspension system. So in the case of this green material, this is a material called choroid. It's a honeycomb, and it's as much as 20% more efficient at absorbing energy than traditional foams. You can see from it that it's got a lot of air space inside, so it provides very good ventilation, and it's very lightweight. And also when it's impacted, it crushes, and because there's so much airspace inside, it allows the material to completely deform and absorb more energy than a traditional foam. So by having this concept of letting the impact material do what it's best at, and then letting the comfort materials do what they're best at, I think we've been able to get an improvement on the helmet liner in both terms of comfort and in terms of the energy absorption and the weight.
Can I, David, interrupt you there?
Sure.
You mentioned comfort. Sergei, as an end user, how important is comfort in a hostile environment?
It's really important. Just to make an example of that, my former unit conducted operations, what we call high-profile attack. That means terrorist attacking things in Kabul. And those operations could go on for until 24 hours. And taking into consideration that the HJELM or the helmet is more than just protection, is also a sensor platform to give him the right situational awareness, so they have to keep it on their head. So they actually wear the helmet for nearly 24 hours in stretch.
Must cause some super stress on the neck. And
it will, and that's why weight is so crucial. We will talk more about weight probably later on, but in those kind of operation, a helmet for an operator, even if you take the lightest helmet on the market, with the attachment they have on the helmet, it weighs more than 3 kilos. So that's why comfort is really important. And what David just mentioned with the airflow, of course, being in, let's say, in Kabul in the middle of the summer, because this is a day operation, goes for 24 hours, you have the day and all that stuff. So just having a helmet that has a good airflow is actually could be, for an operator, critical. Just imagine yourself, you want to do a shot and
the fogging up,
the sweat and all that stuff. So it's really important. Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to add on comfort, Thomas?
Well, not really. I mean, weight itself gives you better comfort, and Sergei already mentioned this, but as David said, by splitting this into two, I mean, you have comfort for itself, and then you have impact protection. As David also said, we can use these unique materials that are best at what they are supposed to do, not a mix or a compromise in between them. So I think that's really important to highlight.
Yeah. David, earlier you mentioned briefly the cable system, or on the helmet where you can use cables in a special way. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the ideas that we have to be considering is that all of the new helmets in the future, the thing that's going to separate them from the past is their electronic technologies. And so you really have a challenge with that, because those are going to evolve very rapidly over time. The rate at which technology and electronics is changing is much faster than the rate of what's happening in terms of things like ballistic materials or foam. So we need to imagine a future helmet that has full electronic situational awareness capabilities, where you might have shared power sources and different ways of displaying information, things like see-through heads-up displays, and a lot more sensors for things like gunfire detection and other forms of friend-foe identification. So all of those devices use power, and there are several programs that are working on how to distribute power to those devices over a helmet and also over the body. And wires are needed to do that. You can transmit power without wires in a somewhat inefficient way, but for the devices we're talking about, we need to have wiring. And so that all has to be considered in a helmet architecture that can be improved and upgraded over time. And so some people have built things like this in the past, but it was integral to the helmet. And so when they needed to change it, it was very difficult, because let's say you go from 6 conductors in a wire, and then 2 years later you need a different system that needs 10 or 15. If it's built integrally into the helmet, there's no way to change it, so you have to throw the whole thing away. The other thing that's happened historically is people that have attempted to do this have made proprietary systems that worked pretty well for a particular set of devices. And in a lot of cases, it was one manufacturer, and it would work only with their devices. And while those might be very good at that particular scenario, as soon as those devices become outdated, or if you wanted to use a competitor's devices or some other technology, it sort of rendered those systems obsolete. And so you have this challenge where you want to have a integrated system for weight savings, but you want to have modularity to give technology the ability to be improved over time without having to replace your entire platform. And so the HJELM concept, we built in wire management channels and mounting hardware along the inside and along the bottom edge of the helmet to allow NFM, as well as other companies that are making electronic equipment, to have a foundation to do their cable routing and management in a pre-planned way that would keep it secure inside the helmet, and at the same time give them the capability of changing it or replacing it if it was damaged. And so I think that that's one of the main benefits to this edge band attachment system with the internal wiring channel and clips, in that it gives everyone this opportunity to adapt to these future technologies without being constrained to them when you want to change them or when you don't need them.
Okay, cool. Now the chin strap, Thomas, can you tell us a little bit how about that works?
Yeah, we have done it a little bit differently. So we've traditionally, you have a buckle on your chin on either the right or the left side. In our liner, we've actually moved the buckles to the back, so you slip them in the back here, and they attach back here. And that does give you, of course, a free chin, and it works. It works in a way that you can have your chin free from buckles or any other obstacles there.
And what
so it's
advantage
nicer.
would that have?
It's comfort mainly. You get a free. You don't have any obstructions here. You can also. Some people like to slide the chin strap underneath their chin like this, and you won't have a buckle digging into your bone here then. So it's mainly comfort. And you could also say that you could possibly wear a mask over it. It won't break the seal of a mask. And also when putting the helmet on or taking it off if you wear a headset on your head, it's a lot easier to have these mounted in the back, to slide them underneath rather than trying to wrestle the normal chin strap around the hearing protection.
Yeah. Sergei, as an operator with this system with the chin strap, I guess it's quite good for safety as well, so the strap doesn't dangle and get in the way of any of your equipment. Or?
Yeah, it is, and but it's something new to the operators, to be honest. So I think that when they get used to it, because one of the things I feel with the HJELM is that it's also the way it's attached is also make the helmet a little bit more stable. You could actually close it up from four. You see here you have this one, and you have this one. So you can actually. I feel. The way I feel it, that this makes the helmet really stable. Yeah. And when it comes, we were talking about weight, so it's really important for the operators that the helmet they use is stable. Yeah. Because if you have the differences in the heavy HJELM, let's say 3 kilos, it's a lot if you wear it for 24 hours. So it has to be stable. Mm. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Adam and Sergei, I'd like to add one other thing. Sorry to interrupt. And I know there's a little bit of lag because I'm not sitting there with you, but there are a lot of times where you don't want to have a buckle located right here when you're sighting a weapon, because that's where you put your cheek to the stock ball on the rifle. And so historically, people have had to choose between a buckle in the way or they had it on the other side opposite, and so you had to have a left or right-hand chin strap for that, and that also can be really frustrating logistically to keep track of all of those kind of versions. So sighting weapons is one of the main benefits to having no buckle on the chin, and like Thomas said before, the ability to wear the whole chin strap underneath your chin most of the time when you're not requiring to have the full stability. And, it's a lot more comfortable and easier to talk when you wear a chin strap under, but then the fact that it doesn't have a buckle makes it comfortable. And then if you need to, you can flip it up on your chin and tighten it up if you have to do something that's really aggressive. And so the other thing I wanted to point out is that the chin strap that attaches to HJELM is instantly releasable. So you can actually take this chin strap out of the helmet as fast as that. It takes about 10 seconds to remove the whole chin strap. And so if you wanted to use a traditional chin strap that had the buckle on the chin, or a chin strap that had a mask integrated into it, the user can do that instantly without any tools, without any time. And so having that kind of flexibility, I think, is an improvement over other versions that are currently available to people.
One thing, Sergei, you touched on was comfort and sizing. You mentioned the chin strap, so it's not wobbling around all the time. So, Thomas, is the size adjustable? Obviously, people have different shaped heads. There will be different sizes made, but is there something they can do to make it more comfortable themselves?
Definitely. Well, as you mentioned, we will be making different widths in the shells, and that's, I think, new to in this type of a helmet. So, obviously, to get as light as possible a helmet, you want it to match your skull shape, basically. So, we have 2 widths on the shells for that reason, and you also, I mean, if you have a long head, you traditionally need to have a helmet that's too wide for you, because it's got one shape and that's it. Here you can actually choose a longer and narrower version just for that. And then it all comes back to weight. You get a lighter helmet by having one that closer matches your head. Yeah. And then back to comfort.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Adam, one thing I want to add to what Thomas said was that the HJELM helmet, and I kind of was pleased that NFM was willing to do this, because, you know, it's a significant investment to be able to make 6 unique helmet sizes and shapes. And so a lot of people will make just a small number, like 2 or 3 shells, and then they will put them at they'll divide up the population of head sizes and then just fill them in with thicker foam on the inside to fit all the smaller heads that go into that. And that works okay, but anyone that doesn't have a head that's as big as the largest size of a helmet is actually paying a penalty, because they're wearing a helmet that's bigger than they actually need, and it's just had the inside filled in with extra foam. And so that's heavier, and it's worse for ventilation, and it's worse for stability, and it can be worse for comfort, but not necessarily. And so if you take a population of people and you have 6 sizes, and we have 2 different shapes of those sizes, then there's a much higher likelihood that every single person will actually have a helmet size and shape that is closer to matching their own head. And so what that really translates into is that more people will have a lighter weight, better fitting helmet than with legacy systems where there's less sizes and less shapes. And so unless you were the lucky people that happened to be the perfect size and shape in the past, now more people will be, quote, the perfect size and the perfect shape in the future.
Okay, great. One thing everyone's touched on is weight. But I know we can't give away any trade secrets, but on a apples to apples comparison with similar gear on similar helmets, what could you say?
Yeah, we don't want to give away secrets, as you say, but and it's always difficult to compare. But I mean, for the protection, this is definitely one of the lightest helmets you get if you measure fragment protection up against weight, definitely. So it's a very lightweight helmet. It's quite a bit below 1 kilogram, so it's a light helmet. And
what about, I know, again, you can't go into release any trade secrets, but testing under the helmet, ballistic testing?
Yeah, as I said, this is mainly a fragment helmet, so it's the 1.1 FSP with a relatively high V50 number. So that's the main focus ballistically, and then we of course do blunt trauma as well, and different environmental tests.
Yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add on that, David?
Yes and no. I mean, I think that there's probably a lot of people that want the numbers for what you're asking, and for all of those in the audience that want that information, I think it was decided that there's going to be a follow-up session for the people that NFM is going to be sharing that information with. And so I don't think we're being elusive by accident. I hope people can recognize that since competitors and a lot of other people were invited to this webinar, they're not comfortable sharing the specifics on those numbers. But for those of you that are watching that are not a competitor, I think there's the full intention of giving you all that information in a more private session.
Okay, great. I'm sure that's been very informative for the audience. What we've received is questions from yesterday and questions that have come through on the webinar today. We're going to go through some of those now, but of course, there's some we cannot answer, but we'll endeavour to get back to you with answers after the webinar if we can. So what I'd like to do now is have a bit of a roundtable discussion with some of these questions. And the first one that we've received, which has been pretty much touched on already, Thomas, but how does the current HJELM system compare to other helmet systems currently on the market?
Yeah, well, this is what we could call a special forces helmet. So it's light, it's got fragment protection. There are those type of helmets around from other companies as well. And as I mentioned, this is definitely among the lightest of them. And but I mean, it's the way we have gone about this is that we've started with a clean slate, so we don't have the same legacy as other companies have. They've made helmets for years and years, many of them, and we could start, as David said earlier as well, by fixing what we thought were, well, not fixable, but at least that we could do better or improve on the current helmets. So I mean, if you take the weight and the comfort and then add on the modularity and how we can attach things, then I think this is definitely among the higher-end helmets on the market today.
Okay, great.
Adam, I'd like to add something to that I think is worth mentioning. We have to be very careful of what we talk about, but NFM has a state-of-the-art technology for manufacturing ballistic shells. And it's, in my opinion, better than anything I've seen anywhere in the world. And they have all the equipment and manufacturing right there in Norway. And even though I can't explain in detail what it does, it allows NFM to manufacturing ballistic materials at a lower weight and a higher performance, protective performance than traditional methods. And so having the opportunity to use that technology to build these helmets, I think is one thing that is sort of understated. And when people see the weight numbers and they say like, okay, you know, that's very impressive, they don't really appreciate how that's achieved. And so the investment that was made into these new technologies that allow that is one of the reasons why that separates this ballistic shell of the helmet from almost any other in the world. As far as I know, there's only one or two other things that are even similar to it, and they, as far as from all of my testing, they're not performing as well. So I think that's a huge benefit that we really can't elaborate on, but you know, it's worth mentioning so that people recognize that this is not made the way that traditional helmets are made.
Great, thanks, Dave. We don't have too much time left, so I'll go with two more questions from the audience. One is accessories. Is NFM working on any accessories for the helmet?
We are. We have some adapters already for the H-mount system. We're working on more. We're also very eager on working together with the industry to make this an open architecture for others to use, for the equipment suppliers. So, but I mean, we're working on solutions for hearing protection, for extra ballistic protection, and these kind of things. I don't want to go into detail on the exact developments, but we're definitely looking at it. And then, of course, also talking to external suppliers so they can fine-tune their equipment for mounting on this helmet.
Yeah, and a question's been raised about price.
Well, it's a high-performance helmet. It's a high-end helmet, so the price is, you could say, high, but it's definitely, we can compare it to other helmets in a similar segment. So it's more or less as the others helmets like these.
And where is it made? Was another question.
Yeah, well, we make the shell in Norway, right on the other side of the wall here, as David said, and then we do the assembly in Poland at our factory there.
Great. And the last question is for you, Sergei. Future special, in fact, we've had a lot of questions for you. People really wanted to get some info from you. But last one being the future of special operation helmet requirements. Is there anything you can add to that?
Yeah, we have actually touched it a little bit. It's weight is an issue, but for the last 20 years, most of the, let's say, Western world soft units has been conducting fighting in Afghanistan, where you have, let's say, high-speed operations. And now when you see the merge of what they call the big nation competition, means that you probably have to see how you operate on with another angle. So I think that the helmet is actually more than just protection. It's also one of the most important, let's say, platforms to adapt sensors for an operator. So with a new kind of, let's say, operational environment they are going into, soft units especially, they will, let's say, go in, they will go deep, they will stay there, so weight will be an issue. So that brings it back to where we started when David talked about, if you see how I talked about the rails you wear and you don't need it. So this is the good thing with the HJELM is actually you could see how you don't have a rail carrying that weight. So it would be, let's say, the requirement will be it has to have comfort and it has to have weight. Mm-hmm. And we think that's in that direction this HJELM is going.
Adam, I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to add one more thing, and I didn't want to interrupt you before when Thomas was talking about the accessories. The HJELM helmet currently has adapters to work with pretty much all of the off-score accessories, as well as anything that uses M-LOK, Magpul M-LOK attachment systems for lights and torches and things like that. So if people already have helmets that have accessories that they're using, they will also work on HJELM for the most part. Some things are not the same, but most of them are.
Okay, great.
And you know, soft units loves flexibility. So.
But do they also, they want the cutting edge, they want the best, don't they?
Yeah, because soft will always try to accelerate their own innovation to be able to meet new operational requirements. So they will always be, they are, if you could say they are high-end performance, they do a high-end performance and they also need high-end equipment. So this is the thing.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much. We're out of time. Time to wrap up. So you to the audience, thank you very much for tuning in. This, as I said, is the first in the webinar series for ECHO. We're planning to do one every quarter. We're also planning on interviewing and doing podcasts with some very interesting individuals who've been out in the field, both men and women. That'll be coming up as well. So what you need to do is you need to follow us on LinkedIn or social media or sign up for the newsletter so you can keep up to date with what's going on. So from us, thank you.